The oceans of 380 million years ago were not just vast, but alien in a way our minds struggle to fully imagine. Among the armored leviathans that prowled these primeval waters, one name dominates the imagination: the Dunkleosteus. For decades, science painted it as a monstrous, unstoppable predator, a creature whose jaw could crush almost anything in its path, whose body was a mobile tank of bone and muscle. Museums displayed its fossils like trophies of terror, animating it in lifelike dioramas with the ferocity of a cinematic villain. But what if everything we thought we knew was wrong? What if this apex predator, this king of the Devonian seas, was not the brutal, mindless hunter we imagined, but something far stranger, far more fascinating? Recent research has begun to overturn the mythology, revealing a creature whose power was measured not in sheer force, but in a delicate balance of biology, evolution, and environment. To understand the Dunkleosteus, we must first abandon the cinematic tropes and enter a world governed by ancient oceans, where oxygen levels fluctuated, where reef ecosystems thrived and collapsed, and where evolution was both creative and cruel. Fossilized remains scattered across what would become Europe, North America, and Morocco tell us that Dunkleosteus could grow over 10 meters long, a length that dwarfs even the largest modern sharks. Its head was sheathed in armored plates so thick and interlocked they were once thought impenetrable, and its jaw, capable of opening at astonishing speed, was likened to a hydraulic crusher. But these features, dramatic as they are, conceal an overlooked subtlety. The mechanics of its bite suggest not just raw power, but a sophisticated feeding strategy. X-ray studies of fossilized skulls reveal a network of muscles and levers designed not for sheer destruction alone, but for precision. Dunkleosteus was likely a selective predator, ambushing prey with timing and skill, striking where its bite could disable without wasting energy. And yet, this is only the surface of a story that challenges our preconceptions. The environments Dunkleosteus inhabited were themselves volatile and ever-shifting. The Devonian period, known as the Age of Fishes, was a time of enormous evolutionary experimentation. Coral reefs sprouted and collapsed, rivers changed course, and oxygen levels in the ocean could fluctuate dramatically, creating pockets where only the most adaptable predators survived. In this world, Dunkleosteus did not dominate by brute strength alone. It evolved in response to a mosaic of pressures, each sculpting its anatomy, behavior, and even its senses. Consider its sensory systems. While much attention has been paid to its jaws and armor, recent reconstructions suggest a creature acutely tuned to its environment. Its lateral line system, an organ shared by modern fish, would have detected subtle vibrations in water, giving it an almost preternatural awareness of movement around it. Its eyes, large and forward-facing, suggest depth perception critical for gauging distance before a strike. In other words, Dunkleosteus was not merely a predator, it was a marine strategist, a hunter who relied on information as much as muscle. But why did it need such adaptations? The Devonian seas were home to a bewildering array of armored fish, many of them just as well protected, just as dangerous. Placoderms, as Dunkleosteus and its relatives were known, displayed a remarkable diversity of body plans, from flat, bottom-dwelling ambushes to elongated, fast-moving chasers. In such a competitive environment, raw power alone would not ensure survival. Timing, stealth, and the ability to exploit ecological niches mattered just as much. Fossil evidence hints at a behavior previously unimagined. Bite marks on contemporary armored fish suggest attacks that were selective, precise, perhaps even calculated. Dunkleosteus may have focused on soft tissue areas, immobilizing prey without engaging in a prolonged struggle that could risk injury. Far from a mindless killing machine, it emerges as a nuanced participant in a dynamic ecosystem, a predator whose intelligence is recorded not in thought, but in the fossilized traces of behavior. Yet, for decades, textbooks and media representations reduced it to a caricature of horror. It was depicted lunging with jaws wide, consuming everything in its path, a creature of unstoppable violence. These narratives obscured a more complex reality, a reality that requires us to rethink not just Dunkleosteus, but how we imagine prehistoric life. What the fossils do not show directly, we infer through biomechanics, comparative anatomy, and environmental reconstruction. Every plate of armor, every lever in its jaw, every contour of its fins tells a story of survival strategy honed over millions of years. In revisiting these clues, scientists are uncovering a creature that balances strength and agility, fearsome appearance and subtle precision, myth and biology. Perhaps the most humbling revelation is not about what Dunkleosteus could destroy, but about how it interacted with its world. Far from a solitary monster, it may have shared the seas with rivals and kin, navigating currents, hunting in territories defined by reefs and underwater topography, responding to the rhythms of tides and seasons in ways we are only beginning to understand. This deeper perspective reshapes our fascination. The Dunkleosteus we imagined, pure horror incarnate, gives way to a more compelling figure, a master of its environment, a creature whose every feature reflects evolutionary pressures, whose terrifying appearance is only one dimension of a complex life. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that the fossil record is not a script written for human imagination, but a code to be deciphered, one that can overturn even our most confident assumptions. In the coming exploration, we will dive deeper into the mechanics of Dunkleosteus, uncovering the engineering marvels hidden within its skeleton, tracing its place within a chaotic ecosystem, and revealing behaviors that challenge the monstrous image we have long embraced. This is not just a story about a fish. It is a story about the process of understanding life, about the ways we misread nature through the lens of fear and spectacle, and about the revelations that come when curiosity replaces assumption. The Dunkleosteus of old textbooks is dead. In its place swims a creature both terrifying and exquisite, a predator whose genius lies as much in subtlety as in strength, a creature whose story reshapes our understanding of evolution itself. To witness it as it truly was, we must abandon our preconceptions and embrace the strange, alien world it inhabited, where every flick of a fin, every snap of a jaw, was part of a grand evolutionary narrative that continues to astonish us today. As we move deeper into the anatomy and behavior of Dunkleosteus, the picture becomes even more intricate, revealing a creature that was both a product and a manipulator of its environment. Its jaw mechanics, which once seemed like a blunt instrument of destruction, now appear to be a sophisticated system optimized for speed and efficiency. The fossilized cranial plates act like a hydraulic framework, allowing the jaw to open in a fraction of a second, generating a sudden burst of force. But here is the nuance. The bite force was not constant, it varied depending on the angle and timing of the strike, suggesting that Dunkleosteus could adjust its attack based on the prey's size, orientation, and defense. Computer modeling of the skull indicates that the jaw closure could exert up to 6,000 newtons of force in an instant, yet it was paired with a jaw-opening velocity that rivaled modern predatory fish. This combination of speed and power is a hallmark of precision hunting, not mindless carnage. In this sense, Dunkleosteus may have hunted like a sniper rather than a battering ram, selecting targets to maximize efficiency while minimizing risk. Beyond its jaws, the body of Dunkleosteus reveals adaptations that hint at surprising mobility for its size. For decades, artists portrayed it as lumbering, armored, and slow, a hulking predator barely able to navigate reefs. However, biomechanical studies of its fins and spine suggest a more dynamic locomotion. Its pectoral fins were capable of nuanced movements, providing stability and subtle propulsion, while the tail was likely a powerful yet flexible driver of bursts of speed. This indicates a predator that could maneuver deftly around obstacles, ambush prey from surprising angles, and perhaps even respond to threats with calculated evasions. The ecological context of Dunkleosteus amplifies our understanding of its behavior. The Devonian seas were home to an explosion of placoderm diversity, ranging from small, armored grazers to other large predators. Fossil evidence suggests that Dunkleosteus occupied a top-tier niche, but it was not invulnerable. Encounters with similarly sized placoderms, or packs of smaller, agile fish, could have challenged it. Such pressures would favor not just raw strength, but tactical intelligence, the ability to time attacks, exploit weaknesses in armored prey, and conserve energy between strikes. This challenges the long-held notion that apex predators are simply the strongest or biggest. In fact, survival often depends on adaptability, information processing, and the ability to anticipate movement. Moreover, chemical analyses of fossilized bones provide clues to Dunkleosteus' metabolism and growth patterns. Unlike modern sharks, whose cartilaginous skeletons allow continuous growth and repair, Dunkleosteus's bony plates required complex mineralization, indicating periods of rapid growth punctuated by slower development. This pattern suggests that environmental factors such as oxygen levels, prey abundance, and seasonal changes directly influenced its physiology. Its very size and armor were not just evolutionary statements of dominance, but responses to fluctuating ecological pressures. Even reproduction may have held surprises. While direct evidence of Dunkleosteus's breeding behavior is scarce, comparisons with related placoderms suggest internal fertilization, perhaps with live birth in certain species. This reproductive strategy would require complex social and navigational behaviors, possibly including the selection of safe, oxygen-rich nursery areas. If true, it adds another layer of intelligence and ecological awareness to a creature we once considered a solitary brute. The sensory capabilities of Dunkleosteus further emphasize its sophistication. Forward-facing eyes, well-developed lateral lines, and a jaw designed for selective targeting all point to a predator deeply attuned to its surroundings. Unlike a modern shark that may rely on a combination of speed, smell, and aggression, Dunkleosteus integrated mechanical precision with environmental sensitivity. Its hunting may have involved stalking through reefs, gauging water vibrations, and striking at just the right moment to disable its prey. Some paleontologists even speculate that Dunkleosteus could detect injured or stressed animals more readily than healthy ones, allowing it to exploit weaknesses without unnecessary confrontation. And yet, despite this arsenal of adaptations, Dunkleosteus was not invincible. Fossilized bite marks on placoderm armor indicate encounters with conspecifics or rival predators, hinting at intraspecific competition and territorial disputes. Injuries that healed over time suggest that survival required not just power, but endurance, risk assessment, and perhaps even negotiation of complex predator-prey dynamics. The ecosystem itself imposed constraints that shaped behavior. Devonian reefs were hotspots of biological activity, with coral-like structures, sponge fields, and dense schools of armored fish. Navigating such terrain demanded spatial intelligence. Misjudging a reef could result in impalement or entrapment. Dunkleosteus's fins, armored head, and streamlined body all appear to have been compromises between protection and maneuverability. This interplay of anatomy, environment, and behavior paints a portrait far removed from the cinematic caricature of a jaw-snapping killing machine. It was a creature of strategy, timing, and subtlety, whose evolutionary success depended as much on observation and precision as on raw strength. Furthermore, the very evolution of Dunkleosteus and its kin reflects broader patterns of experimentation in the Devonian seas. Placoderms underwent an extraordinary radiation, testing different body plans, feeding strategies, and defense mechanisms. In this context, Dunkleosteus represents a successful synthesis: heavy armor for protection, rapid jaw mechanics for predation, and sophisticated sensory systems for environmental awareness. Each feature tells a story of trial, error, and adaptation on a geological timescale, a process that echoes through every extant species today. Yet, this understanding also reveals our biases as humans. For decades, our fascination with violence and size led us to exaggerate Dunkleosteus' aggression, neglecting the subtle cues written in its bones. Only by combining biomechanical modeling, ecological reconstruction, and comparative anatomy can we start to see the predator as it truly was. The transition from myth to fact is not merely academic, it transforms our emotional engagement. Instead of horror, we encounter awe, the kind that comes from recognizing complexity where we expected simplicity, strategy where we expected brute force, and evolution in action where we expected spectacle. In this light, Dunkleosteus becomes a lens for examining life itself, a case study in how organisms navigate the constraints of physiology, competition, and environment. Its story is not isolated. It intertwines with the rise and fall of reefs, the diversification of armored fish, and the shifting chemistry of ancient oceans. The narrative extends beyond jaws and armor to encompass adaptation, survival, and the subtle intelligence encoded in anatomy. Each fossil, each reconstructed skeleton, each biomechanical model is a fragment of a broader puzzle, revealing the dance of life under ancient seas. It forces us to ask questions not just about Dunkleosteus, but about how we interpret evidence how we assign meaning to form, and how evolutionary pressures shape the architecture of life. The predator that seemed unstoppable is, in reality, a masterpiece of compromise, an organism finely tuned to its environment, a strategist as much as a hunter. Its jaws, its fins, its senses, all speak of a complex interaction with a world as unforgiving as it was rich in opportunity. The more we learn, the more we confront the limitations of our assumptions, the seductive power of oversimplified narratives, and the need to respect the subtlety of evolutionary design. This is the lesson Dunkleosteus imparts, that true power often hides in nuance, that survival is rarely about brute force alone, and that understanding requires patience, observation, and a willingness to unlearn what we thought we knew. As the Devonian period drew to a close, the seas that had nurtured Dunkleosteus began to change in ways that no predator, no matter how powerful or intelligent, could fully anticipate. Climate shifts, fluctuating sea levels, and the collapse of reef ecosystems transformed the underwater world into a patchwork of habitable and hostile zones. Oxygen levels dropped in certain areas, plankton populations fluctuated, and the intricate web of prey species that had sustained Dunkleosteus became increasingly unstable. Even the apex predator, whose life had been a careful negotiation of timing, energy, and precision, faced challenges that no amount of adaptation could fully mitigate. Fossil records show a decline in Dunkleosteus populations coinciding with these environmental upheavals, hinting at the profound vulnerability of even the most formidable creatures when ecosystems unravel. In examining the anatomy of the last known Dunkleosteus specimens, paleontologists have noted changes that suggest stress. Growth rings indicate slower development, and some cranial plates show anomalies that may reflect nutritional deficiencies or disease. These signs of physiological strain are echoes of a wider ecological crisis, one that swept through the Devonian seas and reshaped the evolutionary landscape. The extinction of Dunkleosteus was not sudden, like the dramatic asteroid event that ended the reign of the dinosaurs, but gradual, a fading of presence in fragmented habitats. And yet, this disappearance is not merely a tale of loss. It is a lens through which we can explore the intricate connections between organism and environment. The predator's decline reflects a cascade of dependencies: coral-like reefs that provided shelter for prey, oxygen levels that supported metabolism, and climatic stability that allowed predictable seasonal cycles. When these threads were disrupted, even the most capable hunter could not endure. In its extinction, Dunkleosteus leaves behind a profound message about the fragility of dominance. Evolution may create organisms of extraordinary capability, yet such strength is contingent, reliant on ecological balance, environmental constancy, and the subtle interplay of competition and cooperation. Its armor and jaws, once thought to render it invincible, were merely adaptations optimized for a world that would not remain static. Beyond the science, the story of Dunkleosteus carries a philosophical resonance. It challenges the human tendency to equate power with invulnerability, to assume that size, weaponry, or apparent mastery guarantees survival. Here is a creature that embodied strength and intelligence, yet succumbed to forces beyond its control. Its extinction invites reflection on our own species, on ecosystems we influence, and on the impermanence inherent in all life. Fossils of Dunkleosteus, scattered across continents, are not only evidence of anatomy and behavior, they are monuments to the transient nature of existence. They prompt us to consider how evolution shapes life not as a narrative of conquest, but as a dynamic process of adaptation, success, failure, and renewal. The ripple effects of its disappearance were profound. As Dunkleosteus faded from the seas, other placoderms and early-jawed fish evolved to occupy vacated niches, reshaping predator-prey dynamics and accelerating diversification in unexpected ways. Its extinction was both an end and a beginning, a moment in which the intricate dance of life shifted, creating space for new forms of ecological innovation. In this way, Dunkleosteus becomes more than a subject of paleontological curiosity. It is a mirror reflecting the processes of change that define the history of life. By studying its rise and fall, we gain insight not only into a single species, but into the mechanisms of survival, the consequences of environmental instability, and the delicate interplay that sustains ecosystems over geological time. Philosophically, its story invites humility. In the grandeur of its armored form, the precision of its jaws, and the subtlety of its hunting strategies, we are reminded that adaptation is never absolute, that mastery of one moment does not guarantee endurance across eons. The narrative shifts from fear and spectacle to contemplation and understanding, revealing a predator whose significance lies as much in its ecological and evolutionary lessons as in its physical presence. As we reflect on Dunkleosteus, we are compelled to reconsider our own assumptions about power, intelligence, and survival. The creature that once haunted imaginations as a symbol of unstoppable violence now emerges as a testament to complexity, resilience, and vulnerability. Its existence, its behaviors, and its eventual disappearance speak to the universality of life's challenges. The constant negotiation with environment, the necessity of adaptation, and the inevitability of change. In the quiet of the fossil record, Dunkleosteus whispers a story both cautionary and inspiring, a narrative that bridges science and philosophy, biology, and existential reflection. It reminds us that even the most formidable life forms are part of a continuum, shaped by forces larger than themselves, and that understanding these forces enriches our perception of life itself. We are left to ponder not just a creature from an ancient sea, but the broader principles of evolution that govern all life, including our own. In this reflection, Dunkleosteus transcends the role of predator to become a teacher, teaching us about the fragility of dominance, the elegance of adaptation, and the profound, sometimes uncomfortable, truth that survival is never guaranteed. And so, as we close the chapter on the Dunkleosteus, we are left with a lingering awareness of the grandeur and the impermanence of life, a recognition that every organism, no matter how mighty, is both a marvel and a fleeting participant in the vast unfolding story of evolution. Its armored plates and formidable jaws may remain silent in the rocks, but the lessons encoded within them continue to resonate, guiding our understanding of life, adaptation, and the inexorable march of change through the oceans of time.